I would request Dr. Craig Thomas to make his presentation. He would dwell more on the legal aspects of how to create a pathway to have licensure of practice in Northern America that might hold true for some of the other Western countries. He was trained in the University of California at Davis in political science. He has a degree of law at the University of Berkeley, and he was at the prestigious Palmer College of Chiropractic, where he graduated from as a doctor of chiropractic in 1981. He has been closely associated with the integrative practice of NAET and energy healing work, chiropractic, and Ayurveda in their clinic, the Thomas Chiropractic Clinic, which he runs in partnership with his wife, Dr. Helen Thomas. And he has been on the board of directors, the Sacramento Valley Chiropractic Society, President, Doctor of the Year, as well as the President of the North Bay Chiropractic Society. I would request Dr. Craig Thomas to make his presentation.
I am not an Ayurvedic practitioner. I am, by training and experience, 30 years, a practicing lawyer in the United States. Much of my practice dealt with professional licensing, scope of practice issues. I am currently practicing as a chiropractor with my wife, who is also a doctor of chiropractic, and she has been a practicing Ayurvedic doctor in the United States for over 20 years. I was asked to present this paper to look at the regulatory obstacles to the practice of Ayurveda in the United States, because, as Dr. Boddicker correctly pointed out, Ayurveda is not licensed in the United States, and to look at the chiropractic model as a basis for how Ayurvedic practitioners might obtain licensure. So I'm just going to jump right into that. Ayurveda was introduced to America as a medical science, and it's important to emphasize the word medical science, because it is a medical science, and that's very important for licensure. For 6 to 18-month courses of study in Ayurveda with little or no prerequisite study in the biological sciences. These schools are unaccredited but may have state permission to operate. There is no uniformity or system in how Ayurveda is presented or how its practitioners are trained. There is even no common understanding amongst the general population of the term Ayurveda. Some people see Ayurveda as a separate and distinct medical science with a long and proud history and tradition. Others see Ayurveda as a soft health adjunct, employing Ayurvedic massage, lifestyle changes, and dietary recommendations. Some simply equate Ayurveda with anything Indian. For example, there are Ayurvedic clothing stores and Ayurvedic restaurants. Ayurvedic education and training in the United States. There is no institution in the United States offering education and training in Ayurveda even remotely comparable to that offered by Indian universities and colleges. There is no course of study in the United States approaching the 5.5 years spent by Ayurvedic doctors in India obtaining the BAMS degree. Purposes of licensure. There are 3 purposes of licensure. This would hold true for any country. Yeah, but no, but I don't. There are 3 purposes of licensure for healthcare professions. I think this would apply to any country. Number 1, allowing or sanctioning the individual's ability to practice free of the threat of prosecution. Protection of the consumer, very important, by providing minimum standards for education, training, and competency, and by regulation of licensing through enforcement of standards of practice. Protection of the profession and its knowledge base by setting minimum standards for education, training, and testing of prospective licensees, and further by regulation and discipline of license holders through regulatory boards. Now, the way in which healthcare professions are licensed in the United States, it's important to understand this. There are 50 states in the United States. Each of them is responsible for licensing healthcare within their particular state. There's no national licensing of healthcare professions. So if you're practicing in Nevada and you want to practice in Utah, you have to get a separate license. Every state has some form of a medical practice act, which basically grants dominion over the entire body and mind to medical doctors in allopathy. Anything else is a carve-out from that, that is to say, an exception. So for instance, that would include dentistry, chiropractic, osteopathy, and the list goes on. So medical practice acts provide for punishment by fine and or imprisonment of unlicensed persons who treat the body or mind without the benefit of either the MD degree license or a license under one of the carve-out professions. There is at present no licensing of Ayurveda in any form in any state in America. You can search the codes, the statutes of all of the states in the United States, and I doubt that you would see Ayurveda mentioned even once. There are 2 states, however, which need to be mentioned, California and Minnesota, which provide exemption from licensing requirements for all forms of alternative therapies, as long as you don't say you're a doctor, as long as you don't diagnose and do certain things. So at present, without an umbrella license, that is an MD or a chiropractic degree, something like that, practitioners of Ayurveda risk fine or imprisonment for practicing medicine without a license. Now, the risk of that at the moment may be very small, but this has not always been the case for alternative medicine. The history of chiropractic in America is replete with examples of arrests and jailing of chiropractic doctors in the days before licensure. I personally know several chiropractors, older now, who were jailed in the early days. Basically, chiropractic was in a similar position to Ayurveda in that historically it was attacked as being unscientific. Its schools were very small and ill-funded, and the curriculum was very short. And so over the next few decades, chiropractic fought a battle to become licensed in all 50 states, and that was based on the following strategy: the use of grassroots support, improvement of education. Courses of study were lengthened from 18 to 4 years. Curricula were qualitatively improved, especially in the basic or core sciences. A national accrediting agency was established with oversight functions over college curricula, and the body of knowledge of chiropractic, science, and philosophy was more or less codified and embraced by a majority of the profession. So you can begin to see that the parallels are profound. How Ayurveda will be licensed in the United States. Licensing of Ayurvedic practice in America seems inevitable. And the reason for that is that American legislatures like to regulate anything that moves. And so as Ayurveda becomes increasingly popular, it comes up on the radar screen and government officials start looking at it. What form it will take is in question. It is in serious question. The 2 main options seem to be the creation of a certified Ayurvedic practitioner license, which would be based upon the current 18-month training given in a few American schools, these unaccredited schools I've talked about, or the creation of a Doctor of Ayurvedic Medicine license based upon the Indian model of the 5.5-year BAMS degree program. If the current course of events remains unchanged, the 18th month model will prevail. And that is because there's just a lack of schooling. There's a lack of educational institutions that are able to provide training in Ayurveda. Ayurvedic practitioners under this model will not be called doctors. They will not be accorded their status. And their training and education, this is very important, will not reflect the whole of Ayurvedic science. It simply can't. And if the so-called doctor license status is to be achieved, several things need to happen. A coalition of like-minded practitioners, educators, and politicians in India and America must be established. This coalition must become active in the political process in the United States, monitoring legislative activity and interacting with leaders in American Ayurveda, such as the heads of Ayurvedic schools and leaders of Ayurvedic associations. Education and training equivalent to the Indian degrees must be made available in the United States. As a practical matter, you can't ask a legislator in America at the local state level to create a degree, the education and training for which cannot be achieved by an American student within the confines of the United States. In other words, you can't create a license that says, okay, to get this license, you have to go to India. It's simply not going to happen. So this could be done by several ways: creating a whole new college, by creating a school of Ayurvedic medicine within an existing college or university, or by expanding and upgrading one or more of the Ayurvedic schools now being operated in the United States. The basic theme here is America needs your help. We need to seriously develop a curricula that we can import into the United States, and we need your help in funding that and developing ways of implementing that. I want to say a couple of words about what I would call the indigenous practice of Ayurveda in the United States, and by that I mean non-Indian Americans who have a great interest in Ayurveda. We cannot fault them for creating these 18-month schools, because really they have no other alternative. A young person coming out of college who says, I want to learn how to become an Ayurvedic doctor. How do I do it? What are their choices? They can take some form of these trainings, or they can come to India at great expense and obtain a degree or further education. So it's unrealistic to think that people are going to come, a large amount of people are going to come here to get a BAMS degree, for instance. It is absolutely important that we give credence to these people who are well-intentioned, they work hard, and they're serious. Also, I want to give credence to those doctors in America, medical doctors, chiropractors, like my wife, and naturopaths who have been working tirelessly in the field of Ayurveda, working as clinicians who have sought additional training and received it, and who are now trained in various Ayurvedic diagnostic modalities such as the pulse, and also in Ayurvedic therapeutics. I want to pay special tribute to Dr. Ladd. I don't know if he's here, but he was here yesterday and the day before. Dr. Ladd has, if you ask people in America, if you say the word Ayurveda, 9 times out of 10 they will come up with the phrase Dr. Ladd. He has been there on his own without support. He's done it entirely on his own. He's been working in the wilderness, and he has created a foundation, a place upon which Ayurveda can grow and prosper in the United States. Thank you.